it's also a testimony to how bad this Bears receiver core is.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue, right? That
Yeah.
this Bears receivers core was that bad that Chase Claypool is an addition.
What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Ray G back again with another edition of Mock the Mock over here on the Draft Network. If it's your first time tapping in, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, like all the content, subscribe to the TDN Premium channel, Film Breakdowns. My man, my guest of the hour, he's got a show that he does with Damian Parson where they go through the college football biggest storylines and takeaways. We're doing all types of dope stuff over at the Draft Network, so make sure you look at the link in the description. Join the TDN Premium Discord channel. But listen, we got my brother from another mother, my man, Keith Sanchez, a.k.a. The Talent Code on Twitter, and we're going to mock his most recent version 3 of his 2023 NFL mock draft for fantasy football purposes. So we're only going to talk about the offensive players. If you want the full mock, the link is in the description. I highly suggest you read through this. Now, we just had the trade deadline on yesterday, so some of these may change a little bit, but we'll have Keith explain himself with some of these picks in these landing spots. Keith, how you doing this morning, baby?
Oh man, I'm good, man. We hopping up here about to knock this out. I know you do the mock, so I'm interested to hear your questions, right? Which ones you had a problem with, so I can talk it out for the viewers, man.
Well, let's go ahead and dive right into your mock again. This is the third version. We're about halfway through the college football season, or a little over halfway through the college season, and about halfway in the NFL. So right now, Keith, at the top of the draft, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but you've got the Detroit Lions picking number 1 overall, and they're selecting Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. And then at 3, you've got the Carolina Panthers, who we both know that both of these teams need a quarterback, selecting C.J. Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State. Quickly, are these, where you stand today, are these the top 2 guys? Is there any chance that Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, whomever else, Bo Nix, I don't know. Are these the top 2 quarterbacks and we can move on?
Yeah, I mean, they're the top 2 quarterbacks. If you ask me who has a chance, right, to make a real run, I have to say Bo Nix and Hendon Hooker because they're playing good football right now, right? Like it's very hard for me to just flat out ignore the performances that Will Levis has put on display this year and consistently put him at the number 1 or the number 2 quarterback. So yeah, right now Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, just like we thought last year, coming into this year, they're the top 2 quarterbacks. So teams who need quarterbacks, I think they're the top 2 prospects that people will look at.
And do you like those fits? I personally, Detroit's offensive line, solid. They've got weapons around it. This is, for me, this is the landing spot I really, really, really want to see Bryce Young go to. I'm not a big believer in Dan Campbell. We'll see how that works out. But do you think these two situations are good environments? Because, Keith, we've seen more young quarterbacks ruined by poor coaching, by poor development. Do you think these are 2 organizations that can actually get the most out of both of these guys?
I think it's one organization,
Okay.
and I think that, and I think that organization is the Detroit Lions, right? Because they had, like you talked about, they have a good offensive line, they have offensive weapons. Jameson Williams coming back, they have DeAndre Swift. They got, like I said, really good offensive line. And listen, the Lions are putting up points, right? Like they're scoring points, which lets you know that they have a somewhat competent offense. Now, the reason I gave them a quarterback is because I think they need a guy that can take them to the next level at quarterback position. But I think Bryce Young there, yes, he has Jameson Williams coming back, which he was a former teammate with him. Then you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got DeAndre Swift. They just traded T.J. Hockenson, but you can get another tight end, right? So I think I feel really good about that one. And unlike much years in the past, I think that the Lions are quarterback ready. They did a good job of building out the rest of this offense, and now it's just insert a good quarterback. And I think Bryce Young will be able to make some plays and do some things down there.
All right, let's move on to this one. I got to give you a little sounder here. Let's get a little sounder here because you've got the Houston Texans with one of their first top 10 picks. They got 2 top 10 picks. And with their second pick, you have them selecting the wide receiver 1 off of the board, TCU's Quentin Johnston, going to the Houston Texans. Now, I love it, Keith. I think this is a bold call, but I actually like the steam and momentum that QJ is getting for the wide receiver 1 spot. My issue with this mock is you did not give Houston a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. And I'm going to tell you right now, Keith, I'm watching Houston. You live in Houston. You know good and damn well Davis Mills ain't it. So why on earth did you have the Houston Texans bypassing C.J. Stroud to take Will Anderson? Just really quickly, why are you not mocking a quarterback to the Texans? You know Davis Mills ain't it.
Right. I think the Texans have way more problems than just the quarterback, also, right? And I looked at, okay, we talked about the Lions being quarterback ready. Are the Texans quarterback ready? No, not now. They're not. The offensive line still has, they have a lot of aging guys, and they have guys that, quite frankly, we're not sure if they're even going to be on a roster next year. So you put a guy like CJ Stroud, who's playing at Ohio State with tons of weapons, a solid offensive line, and I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. So I'm like, look, right now, the Texans did a good job last year of adding just good football players in Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, Christian Harris, Thomas Booker. They ran the gamut as far as adding high quality, high level athletes that are proven football players. So I'm like, if they keep that philosophy, they're going to be in a good spot. So that's why it was Will Anderson and Quentin Johnson. And then maybe next year, or you get a veteran this year, right? And you slide them in there and you see how that looks. But man, go get two high level, high talented, athletic prospects and just continue to build out your roster before you want to pull the trigger on a quarterback.
All right, and talk about Quentin Johnston because I love it. And we have been wanting to see him take those steps forward, right? Man, I know he's got the tools. I know he's got the traits. I know he's got the talent. He's putting it together, Keith, and he's dominating right now. So just give me your thought process as to giving Quentin, what's Quentin Johnston's fit and role in this Houston Texans offense?
I think he can be number one. I think he can be number one. Right now, Brandon Cooks is that guy for them, right? And we heard trade rumors. So that lets you know that there's no long-term outlook for Brandon Cooks. And man, the Houston Texans need a dude. Like it's been since D Hop and Andre Johnson that they've actually had the number one wide receiver. And I think they just need a number one guy. And Quentin Johnson profiles as that, man. The guy is 6'3", 6'4", jumps 40 plus inches, is rumored to run a 4.3, 4.4. So you talk about, we don't get that physical profile that much anymore, right? Not a lot of the number one wide receivers that come out now, they're 6 foot, 180 pounds. So you're talking about a totally different, kind of freak athlete. So I was like, man, look, Houston Texans, y'all take this guy because it's rare and then move on from there. Like I said, figure out the quarterback position via a veteran or, something else.
I like it, Keith. I like it, Keith. Now let's scroll down your draft. We got some defensive players, some
Okay,
interior D
yeah.
line, some edge rushers, but we ain't worried about none of that for fantasy. Let's talk about at number 12, the Chicago Bears select Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Now, yesterday, the Bears did trade for former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Chase Claypool. They gave up a second-round pick in order to get Chase Claypool. Do you think this puts Chicago in a position to where they don't have to take a receiver here at 12? Maybe they can go with an offensive tackle, give Justin Fields some protection, maybe go in a different direction? Or do you still think that when it's all said and done, Claypool, they still need more than Chase Claypool, and they're going to take a wide receiver? So just talk to me about your selection of JSN and just how you think that changes with Claypool there.
Yeah, so I'm not changing my mock based off of Chase Claypool, right? Chase Claypool, let's be honest, he had every opportunity in Pittsburgh to be the number one guy. He did. Like Deontay Johnson was, I believe, what, a third round
Third
pick or
round
something
pick.
like,
Yep,
yeah,
third
third
round
round
pick.
pick, and Chase Claypool, I believe, went higher, and they tried to give him targets, right? Like they went out of their way to get him involved into the offense, and we haven't seen any consistency. And when you talk about athletic profile, this is another guy that's 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus pounds, and he should be able to dominate, but we haven't seen one season where he's dominated. You live in a fantasy world, right? Where everybody was excited. Man, the Pittsburgh Steelers got this
Yep.
guy from Notre Dame and XYZ, and has never panned out. Like even when you compare him to George Pickens, right? Like you're seeing some high level things from George Pickens as far as being a big body wide receiver. So I think Chase Claypool gives this offense another dynamic, but it's also a testimony to how bad this Bears receiver core is.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue, right? That
Yeah.
this Bears receivers core was that bad that Chase Claypool is an addition. I don't know if every receiver room in the NFL, Chase Claypool at this point in his career is necessarily an addition. So if I'm the Bears, I'm still rolling with JSN, and then you try to, so you have N'Keal Harry, you have Chase Claypool, you have JSN, you just try to keep filling this wide receiver room out for Justin Fields.
And no concerns about him essentially not doing anything this season, like nothing
With
whatsoever.
JSN, Nah, I mean, listen, if everything checked out last year, they'll have plenty of opportunity to have conversations with him. And I'm more than sure if anything happens, we'll hear from him, right? Like we're here, if there are character issues or anything like that. But no, and like we talked about before, we've seen this in the past as far as, possible injuries or like I said, long are the days when people said, man, Jamar Chase took a year off.
I
And
feel
remember
you.
it was he can't catch the football. Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, damn it, he catching the football.
All right.
So I'm kind of, I feel in a good spot about that.
All right, well, let's move down your mock because at 14, Keith, I love this pick. You've got the Green Bay Packers selecting USC wide receiver Jordan Addison. And we know that when you're talking about a wide receiver that can play inside, that can play outside, he's got the speed, he creates great separation, whether that's off the line of scrimmage or in his route or at the catch point. Addison's a dynamic weapon. You look at the Green Bay wide receivers right now, Sammy Watkins. I mean, it looks like he's out there running a five flat. He looks like he's struggling to get going. I like Romeo Dubs, but is he a number one? I'm not sure. Keith, I think Jordan Addison, if Aaron Rodgers is there, I love this fit of Jordan Addison to the Green Bay Packers, Keith. I'm pretty sure you don't have a ton to add on here. He's a dynamic weapon at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, for sure. And I went with an advanced guy, right? A guy that's proven and not a project guy because that's what the Packers went with. So I'm like a guy that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to pull to the side after every drive and tell him, man, you're supposed to do this on this
Yep.
play. What he has to do with Romeo Dubs and Christian Watson. So that was the reason for the pick of sending him to Green Bay.
All right, Keith. Now, this one we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this one because
All right.
he's still going to be a first round pick. I wholeheartedly believe that. But I have been very underwhelmed by Will Levis this year. And I get it, right? He's got young receivers. The offensive line isn't that good. But what I don't like to do is continue to make excuses for players, right? I want to
Agree
see
100%.
my leader at the quarterback position be a floor raiser. And I'm not asking for Will Levis to go out there and be Superman and be CJ Stroud. He doesn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., he doesn't have a Jameer Gibbs in his backfield. But man, you go out there in a head-to-head matchup on the road, and you throw for 98 yards, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. I don't want to hear it, man. And he hasn't. I keep saying he hasn't taken his game to another level. He's here. You got him at 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. I'm I'm nervous, Keith. I get all the tools and traits, but I'm nervous about the development of this young man going in the NFL. And the Colts organization is one right now that seems a little out of whack. Talk to me about Will Levis and your selection of him to the Indianapolis Colts at 15.
Yeah, Rhea, I got you. You're nervous. I'm nervous too. I'm nervous too. I didn't feel great about this, but when you talk about the status of the franchise, talking about the Indianapolis Colts, I think the NFL and the fan base of the Colts, they're tired of these, veteran, project type
Yeah.
situations. Let's get a guy on the last 2-3 years of his career and try to bring him in. So I said, man, okay, we're sitting at 15. I don't feel comfortable with putting Will Levis top 10, top 12, anything like that. So is that, will the Colts take him and be like, okay, we can groom this guy. We have big bodied wide receivers, right? We have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. So if you fill out this offensive line a little bit, maybe he has some things around him to where he can just distribute the football. But I'm with you, Ray. Listen, I'm at that point too. And me and DP talked about it, right? They're tired of making excuses, right? Like, because how many quarterback prospects do we get to make excuses for? Like when we came into this season, we wrote off Bo Nix, right? We wrote off DJU. We wrote off a lot of quarterbacks because they simply didn't get it done. And when you look at the numbers now for Will Levis, they're pedestrian. So this is a guy that it was nervous for me because I said, man, he might be playing with house money because people are going to consistently make excuses, right?
Yep.
Because Josh Allen was inaccurate coming out of college. People are going to say, well, that's okay. But that's part of playing quarterback. You're not supposed to be inaccurate. You're supposed to be accurate with the football. So, man, this is a really interesting thing for me. And I ain't gonna lie, this was probably the toughest slot for me because I was trying not to overreact to the
Right.
Tennessee game, but I also wanted to be honest in my evaluation that listen, you're not playing top 10 pick worthy football. So it'll be interesting to see what he does down the stretch.
And the reality is, Keith, you're already seeing some of the big name people say he could potentially be the number one overall
Yeah.
pick. You know he's going to get drafted. He's probably like going to be a top 10 pick. Probably. Like if I had to throw my cards on the table now, and I'm not saying he's deserving of that, but there's going to be a team that's like, oh, if I just get him in my program, like we'll be able to turn it around because he does have the size, he does have the arm talent, he's got all these things you like. But at some point, man, the gumbo, you got to put the stuff in the pot for the gumbo to taste
Yeah.
good. You can't just have it a little bit here, some on the side, some in the fridge. You got to put it in the pot, and then you got to let that bad boy stew for a little bit, right? You got to let it simmer. I don't know about Will Levis, man. It's been an interesting season to say the least, and I appreciate your process of not wanting to overreact, but also being realistic of where you are with him right now. So let's move down the board. You did not give the New England Patriots a wide receiver. We'll save that for another day because I don't know. Maybe they should be looking for a quarterback. But let's talk about Bijan Robinson. You have them at 19 overall to the Atlanta Falcons. Big Bijan Robinson to the Falcons. They want to run the ball, Keith. First running back off the board. I know you're a big Gibbs fan, and we'll get to him a little bit. But Bijan to Atlanta, pretty solid fit, right?
Oh man, I love it. And listen, I did it, right? And even when I did it, man, I was patting myself on the back, man. I said that's a hell of a selection right there, Mr. Sanchez. I thought it was a perfect fit, man. You're talking about Arthur Smith and his scheme, him coming from Tennessee. The Atlanta Falcons appear to be a tough, gritty team. Right now, they're running back by committee. Man, you slide a guy like Bijan Robinson into, with Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Oh, now you're really rolling now, right? You have a three-headed monster, and then at that point, it may not matter who's playing quarterback, right? If Mariota's stinking up the joint, just hand the ball off to Bijan 30, 40 times. So I really like the selection, the philosophy that, with him going to the Falcons. I think it's a damn good pick and a damn good selection right there.
All right, Keith, you got back-to-back tight ends. You got Michael Mayer to the Dolphins at 20, and then Darnell Washington to the Chargers at 21. Now, I believe the Dolphins traded this pick yesterday. I believe they traded this pick to get Bradley Chubb. So let's just hypothetically, the trade happened before the mock. Would you have put Michael Mayer at 21 to Los Angeles and then found another spot for Darnell Washington? Because I'm assuming Mayer is your tight end one. So just really quickly, would you have done that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayer's my tight end one, so I would have had him going to the Chargers then if the Dolphins didn't have that selection.
All right. All right. Well, Darnell Washington, Michael Mayer, top two tight ends in the class for everybody. And if they go to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, whomever it is, I think that's a fantastic fit for either of those tight ends. All right, Keith, let's get back to the quarterback room. And this one, man, I love it, man. I love it. And I just want to challenge you because you have the New York Giants at 27. They're playing damn good ball, selecting Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee. Daniel Jones has played good football this year, Keith. He's not out there winning games for the Giants, but he ain't losing them games either, right? So just talk to me about your thought process of Hendon Hooker. Does he step in immediately as the guy? Does Daniel Jones get another year? How do you think this situation would play out, Hendon Hooker to the Giants?
Right. This for me was all about slot and positional value, meaning that if they, when they were top five, everybody thought, man, if you asked a month or two ago, it'd have been like Will Levis to the Giants,
Yep.
Josh Allen, Brian Daboll, like he'll be able to get the best out of them. But, the Giants are winning football games. So they're picking in the bottom third of the draft, right? And so when I looked at positional value, the talent that was available that the Giants can add to their roster, I said, you know what? Why not go in a different direction? Get a quarterback, get somebody that can possibly challenge Daniel Jones, because you still have to figure out that contract situation and everything that we thought about Brian Daboll as far as a quarterback coach, an offensive coordinator, a head coach, and being able to develop quarterbacks. If we thought that he can do it with Will Levis, why can't he attempt to do it with Hendon Hooker, right? And that was my philosophy. Like, do it with the guy that's actually playing good football. And Daniel Jones right now, he's winning the game because of two things. He's managing the game and he's utilizing his legs, right? And Hendon Hooker at this point, a better athlete. So I thought,
Okay.
why not give the Giants a little bit of a boost instead of taking, possibly a corner or interior defensive lineman that's not a top tier guy? Go ahead and get a quarterback and see if you have something in Hendon Hooker in the back end of the first round.
My only challenge to this one, Keith, is if Hendon Hooker performs versus Georgia this weekend, like he's been playing,
Oh,
yeah,
all the way up.
yeah, you'll be mocking him a lot higher. I think everybody will, but this is a big test for Hooker. Got two final players that we're going to talk about. You got Kayshon Boutte to the Tennessee Titans. Talk to us about Boutte to Tennessee. I
Yeah,
I
I
like
mean,
Boutte. Tennessee, man. I don't know what the hell they're doing offensively, right?
so this was to me. I think they showed us last year, right, when they got rid of AJ Brown and then they drafted Malik Willis. At some point, they're going to turn the page. I think they see the ceiling with this Ryan Tannehill run game situation, right? So my viewpoint is this, that they plan on turning the page at some point with Malik Willis, and he's going to need playmakers, right? So this isn't an immediate impact. I know for even fantasy purposes, right? This is not something where you say, okay, next year is going to be locked and loaded. But if you're talking dynasty purposes or something like that, this can be a 2-year thing to where Malik Willis is coming into his own. Keishon Butte now has somebody to get him the football. Malik Willis has a rocket arm. Keishon Butte has shown that he can be a vertical threat. So I'm like, okay, now you have him along with Treylon Burks and a couple other receivers they have there, to where you have a good balance and those wide receivers complement each other. So that was more of my thought process with Keishon to Tennessee.
All right, and your final pick, the man of the hour, the Eagles get richer and richer and richer because you have them selecting Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs with the 31st overall pick. I mean, go ahead, sound off on Jahmyr Gibbs to Philly. This is a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, this is just icing on the cake for this Philadelphia Eagles offense, right? Can you imagine doing, read option with Jalen Hurts and Jahmyr Gibbs? Good luck with that one. And I started to slate him higher, but we know how the NFL views running backs as far as value. So if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you have 2 first-round picks, right? I had them spend the first on, I think, an interior defensive lineman, which positional value makes sense. And then if you're sitting there and Jahmyr Gibbs, this super athlete who affects the passing game, who's a really good running back, also is just sitting there, man, take him, right? Take him. Give credit to the head coach, Nick Sirianni. Just like he found things to do with Jalen Hurts in his offense and getting everybody involved, he's going to find a way to get Jahmyr Gibbs involved. And now the Philadelphia Eagles, they went from one of the worst skill positions to one of the best skill position teams in a matter of less than 2 years. So I really like this pick too. And the rest of the NFL, somebody might want to draft Jahmyr Gibbs, and don't let this happen for the Philadelphia Eagles.
And I know a lot of people say don't draft running backs in round 1. They're not, listen, at the back of the first, he ain't falling to the second like that. He's not getting them. They're not getting him at 64 in the second round.
Right? No, they're not.
I'm just taking him, man. He's an incredible running back. You add him to Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown. Good luck. In that offensive line, good luck trying to stop Philadelphia. So, Keith, I appreciate you joining for this edition of Mock the Mock. We didn't mock you too bad. We had a couple of questions for you. I thought this was a solid mock. So I highly encourage everybody out there to click the link in the description and check out his entire mock. Please follow Keith on Twitter at The Talent Code. Engage with him. Let us know in the comments what you liked about this mock, what you didn't like, who you think was too high, maybe who was too low. Keith will be back with more mocks as well as the rest of our scouts over here at the Draft Network. So for Ray Garvin, Keith Sanchez, and the Draft Network, comment, subscribe, like. We're out of this thing. Peace out.